mountain, and this mountain shall be removed. This mountain shall be removed. My mountain shall be removed by thy Spirit, saith the Lord. God, we're grateful to be in your house, a place that we can come, that we can hear truth in the midst of a world that is full of lies. God, we're asking for the anointing that breaks the yoke and helps us, God, to see clearly your will that you have for our lives, and that we can be caught up in what you have for us. We thank you in advance. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Lord is good all the time. He's a stronghold in the day of trouble. And I want to, maybe you'd like to join me. I like to turn this little idol off in the house of the Lord. Welcome everybody to our adult Sunday school. And I very much appreciate your interest and faithfulness to the house of the Lord for Sunday school. And we're doing a study for those of you perhaps that are visitors, maybe first time in. We're doing a study on future finances. I think my son did last Sunday. I know he did last Sunday. I saw it on the live stream. And I think he added the phrase sanctified savings. And what the purpose of this class is, many times in ministry, you're like Johnny Appleseed. Johnny Appleseed evidently worked at a cider mill back east, and they were, putting all these apples through, and they were de-seeding the seeds, and so there's mounds and mounds of apple seed to make the product, the cider. And so he lived in a time when many of the American pioneers and settlers, you could say, were migrating out west, and many an account of people that actually died in the process of going out west. And so he began to put his mind to that and said, I can make a difference. And so he went along the wagon roads that had been cut, and he planted apple trees from those seeds. And so that's not something that just happens overnight, but in the process of time, in the miracle that God has given, things grow from a seed, and then they produce a tree, and then they produce the fruit on that tree, and ended up giving us that powerful account of somebody that made a difference by planting seed. So some of you, you may say, "Oh, this is nothing major." Or some of you might say, "I don't really need this." You might be one of Fortune 500's secret members, but I didn't know that. You didn't tell me that. But most of us are slugging it out, and there's some young people here, and there's some middle-aged people here, and there's some old people that act like young people that need some help, and so like me. And so we're going to do this study, and then the other thing that you possibly might take away from this is every one of you is a teacher in some capacity. Maybe right now you don't think you have too many people that you influence, but everybody is being watched. Did you know that? I remember when I was first saved, just freshly saved, within a few months of my salvation, a man came up to me and he said, "Mark, you're being watched." Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? But he gave me a truth. He said, people watch you, and they observe, and so all of us are examples, and all of us have the opportunity to teach by your example, by the words that you speak. But let's just pull that in. You're going to have maybe relatives, maybe children, maybe kids in Sunday school, maybe friends, and you can make a difference if you'll learn good things, the wisdom of God, and seek to share it. Anything God, by the way, anything God gives us is not just for yourself. In fact, that's the fastest way to lose it. Is you hold on to you hold on to something and you clamp on it. You get a covetous grasp on something you don't want to let go. I can almost guarantee you're going to lose it. There is a little ditty that goes like this: use it or lose it. And so there is they that scattereth and yet increaseth more and more. There are those that hoard it up, and yet they decrease because they didn't understand the principle of the seed. So last time that I was with you, I mentioned something that should be observed and should be pondered, and that is that the four patriarchs that started off the family of God in covenant, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Joseph. Those are four generations. Abraham is the first Hebrew, the first man, the fountainhead that God launched the chosen people from. He had the promised son, Isaac, was a miracle son. And then Isaac had Jacob, and Jacob had Joseph. And so all four of those, what was the one thing I sought to draw your attention to that happened in all four of their generations? Carl? They all had famines. And so they were men and their families, of course, that were absolutely in the will of God. And this is something that the faster you learn it, that to be in the will of God does not exempt you from trials, temptations, some difficult times. In fact, in some regards, by being a Christian, you're going to have even some peculiar and some unique extra trials. But let's hasten to say this: don't ever make the mistake. Because I'm a Christian, because I got committed, because I gave, then I'm getting attacked. Well, that may be true to a certain extent, but don't forget, when you're a sinner and you're chugging down the whiskeys and rye or whatever your beverage of choice, a lot of times the next morning you're very acquainted with the great white throne, as in puking your guts. So no, your life is. By the way, you got saved because your life wasn't so hunky dory. The Greek of hunky-dory, look it up. Baked into life, get used to it, in other words, embrace that. So, because, in fact, Peter, I don't have it right here, but Peter said, do not think it strange considering the fiery trial that is to try you, as though some strange thing happened to you. So he wrote that, and anytime the Bible has those kinds of statements, it's not just like, he didn't have anything else to talk about or think about. He wrote that because there's people that are like, hey, I thought being a Christian was going to be my ticket to easy street, and so he has to correct a wrong attitude that was springing up in the church. Because really, some people, their attitude is, if this is what it means to be a Christian, then I'm out of here. I'm not gonna continue. And so that was prophesied too. It's a parable of the sowers. Some become like the seed that pops up and it just sprouts. But then when the sun is up and the intense heat or drought or intensity comes, they get offended and they bail on our God. So just might put this out: what's the ultimate objective? Why? What is God looking for in the earth as far as the work of God right at this moment? What is God doing right now on the earth? What, Carl? Huh? Okay, and what is he doing as far as in the nations or the peoples of the world? Michelle Rawlings, I think you had your hand up. Yep. Mm-hmm. So that we're supposed to be the light. Okay. And we're to represent Christ. Okay. And the church is supposed to be showing Christ, but he has to burn those things up. So okay. It's a choice. We have to allow him to burn those things up, or like when we go to heaven, it talks about we're not going to be that because we didn't allow it now. Okay, so God is doing something in the world. He's calling out what? People. And those people that he's choosing for his kingdom are called a very intimate name. What? Huh? I heard it. The bride. So listen, this doesn't take a rocket scientist. God is going to marry us. He's not looking for people that are fly-by-night, one hit and off we go. He's looking for people that are, they don't have to be perfect, but they have to have a heart that says, you know what, I'm committed to him. You get married, you say, supposed to, for good or for evil, for better or for worse. And so part of the little testing that goes on is you're going to be put through the paces of some things, and that's how you are sanctified more and more. That's how you have opportunities to show your love and your loyalty to God. Does God value loyalty? You better believe he does. Absolutely. Satan was a low-down, dirty bird that betrayed, and so he's looking for loyalty. So that is what it is. You have the opportunity during a trial to always turn the trial from something that you felt like you're a victim and have to go through this, to this can be a display case where the glory of God and you are his trophy of grace. Job is a prime example. Satan, I find it fascinating that backsliders, at least up to a certain point, they have to go to church. It's even true today. Might even be some here today. Anyway, you got it. And so God has assemblies. And so Satan came amongst the angels. And God says to him, where you been? He said, I've been up and down in the earth, up here and there and everywhere. And God said, did you consider my servant Job, a man that loves God and hates evil? And say, yeah, right. And so that was and then they're off to the races on that trial. And that's the oldest book in the Bible. And it wasn't that Satan can goad God and then we become this little game, this little experiment on the board, and like we're just like this. Actually, the truth is, is much bigger issue. Job had the opportunity to prove his love, his loyalty to God, and we know, we just read the end of the story. He ends up with twice as much. We could even put Job in the story about future finance. And so, the issue is that God wasn't goaded by Satan to say, let's make an experiment, and a painful one at that with Job. Job had some issues. He was the righteous man that had not yet been broken from self-reliance. And you can be a very, very strong person in yourself, and you can mistakenly be deceived by self-reliance and self-confidence, and you're not dealing with some issues like pride. The reason why, if you're following along with our Bible reading in the church, there's a whole section in that end conversation when God talks with Job, and he talks about Leviathan. Leviathan is the king of pride over all the children of pride. And so there's a big issue on pride, and that gives us a tip. God was dealing with his servant that needed to be sanctified in that area of his life. So no, just don't think that God is always up there taking the bait, and Satan is let's hit Murdoch. let's hit Ron Thompson. Let's play a game with them and stick them, see how many times before they say ouch. No, that's not it. If you do go through a trial, you can be assured of this: God is doing something. And you may not like it, it may not be pleasant, it's not pleasant, but if you will cooperate with God, all things work together for good. Joseph said, you meant it for evil, God meant it for good. In the book of Esther, Haman attempted to do some wickedness, and God turned it and brought great out. Kim? Yep, and so that's the devil cannot conceive of real love. Everything he does is and that, and again, I don't want to take the rest of the Sunday school examining Lucifer, who was the son of the morning. He was the sum of wisdom and beauty. The sum of wisdom and beauty. He radiated. He was a cherub that covered. He was God's personal bodyguard. He also, many feel, was the leader of worship. And at some point in time, the multitude of his merchandise, he had inlaid gems. He had musical pipes in him. He didn't have to pick up an instrument. He has musical instruments in him. And so, but the sum of that corrupted him, the multitude of his interactions. And so somehow something got amiss in him. And instead of being content to be a part of the team, part of the family of God, and part of the assignment that God had given him, he began to covet God's place. I don't want to serve God anymore. And really, it's foolishness, but we can see it. He got this attitude: I know how this works. I can see how this goes. And why should we do all this stuff and God get the glory? You know what? I'm gonna expand the Godhead myself. I'm muscling in on the Godhead. By the way, Satan didn't say I'm gonna dethrone God and completely take. He said, I'll be like him. I want a position with him. And so be careful. Just let me tell you something. You may be in training. You may be in a position in life and a position of job or something. And then all of a sudden you have this idea. I know what this boss, why should he get? I think I'll pull a coup on him. Don't do that. That's just wicked. There may be a time when you separate from somebody and get promoted, but Do it God's way, because I want to tell you something. It's as old as Satan. When you try to, the one that helped you, the one that gave you opportunity, the one that was your, was in your corner, so to speak, and then you turn on him. That's not good. That's disloyal and it's wicked. I just don't know why I said that, but I did. So, okay, let's move on. What did I have? Somebody, my radar hit somebody's, bing, bing, Bob. Yeah. Yeah. I share that with you. It's like, put your hand on your mouth. Don't get so, I preached a number of times sermons on judging God. You're not in possession of all the facts yet. So, and I just saw a lady in San Diego, and when I was in the hotel lobby, I was coming out, and she had this T-shirt. The people that wear a sweatshirt, but they haven't blazed a certain saying or logo that they have, and it says across the top, and it said, "Remember." So, I can't help, I'm reading it. It's like a signboard on her back. Remember, every person you meet today has things going on you know nothing about. People aren't out there in public, with, I'm going through the worst thing, and attacks and pain and sickness and relational, they don't do that. And so remember, you don't know. So anyway, and if you do want to give God counsel, your wisdom, may I suggest you take the little quiz first. There's 148 questions from the natural realm. When God starts to talk to Job, he starts saying, "Do you know? Were you when I hung the earth in thin air? How's that work, Job?" And he asked him 148 questions from the natural realm, and so he's making the point. You can't even start with the ABCs. You don't know the ABCs, so don't try algebra and trigonometry and physics before you get back to the ABCs first. Learn how to say your name without stuttering, and then we can talk. All right, so we're moving on to this. What does it mean? I have a little saying that goes like this: money may not make you happy, yet the lack of it will certainly make you miserable. If you don't have anything, and it's like, I know there could be a monk in here or somebody. Yeah, I get it. But the truth is, if you're a social person, you have some, relationships, you have some, involvement in real world, and then you're just like reduced, and you don't have anything, and it's like, okay, then I have to beg, or I have to. It's horrible. And so you don't convince me, or you may have a little whacked out idea that I'm spiritual and I'm, but the truth might be, you might be lazy and a bum. I see that one blessed everybody. The truth is that you might be a thief and other things. So let's be real. And so the lack of money can certainly make you miserable. And so God wants to weigh in. He gave man a capacity, women a capacity, and it's called the ability to discern, the ability to exercise foresight. Very important word. What does that mean? Foresight. Get it? Let's break that down a little bit. What does that mean to have foresight? Steve?
You see the end.
Okay.
Like you
You can see the end. Okay, you're in a place right now in the timeline, and then you look up ahead. Is that what you're intimating? Is that you look up ahead, you can see the end? What else, Alec?
Well, foresight's interesting because you're seeing the direction, and the end gives you the opportunity now to make a change.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If I see this end, if I make this change,
Yes.
maybe it'll be this end.
Okay, so I would interpret what you just said is that you have the ability to calculate. You have the ability to see potential ends. That if I take this road or make these decisions, this is going to be the outcome. If I do nothing, it's definitely going to give you an outcome. Well, I'm not going to do anything. So, yeah, but that's going to bring you to an outcome as well. Okay, and so the ability that God gives us to foresee, and really, the reality is that when we're sinners and we're not accepting God's wisdom and guidance, that produces stress in us because we have a sense of impending doom. It's like every backslider, you ask them, "How are you?" "Oh, if it was going any better, I couldn't stand it." You're lying. You've pitched your tent on top of a volcano. It hadn't blown its top yet, but you feel the rumblings. And a backslider always has a fearful looking for the coming of judgment. And so I don't care what they say. They're lying, and then perhaps some of you have come and told the truth on yourself when you got your heart right. And so a person that has the ability to look ahead, when we're in sin or delusion, we tend to, we try to dull it, we try to dodge it, we try to mask it. We might party, we might take drugs, we might be recreation, sports, hobbies, anything, so that we don't have to really deal with it. And that's one of the great things the Spirit of God does. When He comes, He will convince the world of sin and righteousness and coming judgment. All of those things don't make us real comfortable, but that's the way you get out of your dilemma, is you confront truth. You start to deal with truth instead of blowing it off and be unwilling to face the truth. And it's basically, you'll know the truth, and the truth will make you free. All right, so there's some realities that I just tossed out, and I just quickly review this. When I was studying for this, and by the way, I present a number of these things to the leadership of our fellowship because just asked about that. Our fellowship is the grain of our fellowship. So 65% of people in the U.S. Stopped working earlier than they expected, with health being a major issue. So people have an idea, it's not going to happen to me. It's like when you talk to young people, they're not going to die. Do you know that? You ask young people, do you know everyone's going to die? Yes, everyone except for me. In other words, they act that way, or it's unpleasant. I don't want to go there. Don't bring me down. Don't harsh on my mellow, Pastor. And so, did you like that, Mary? I said that for you. And so, okay. And so, I was in the Philippines for 9 years. I had to tell jokes, and only my wife would get it. And she would just look, and she would laugh. She'd be laughing, and there's 400 faces looking at me like, "Are you nuts? Are you nuts, Americano?" And my wife is just laughing, shaking her head like, "You're nuts, Americano." And so, but you got to do what you got to do, you know. I made it, and all I can tell you is good humor I learned from Glenn, my friend Glenny. All right, so health was a major issue. So people don't think, like, you're in your 20s. Well, it's not going to happen to me. I'm in great shape. Well, you might step on a kid's Lincoln log, and in next nanosecond, 3 seconds, you go down on your back and something pops, busts. Harold Warner preached a sermon, I think, 3 seconds. 3 seconds. He was driving, he was walking, he was normal in the capacity of physically, and then the car slipped off the road, tumbled, his back was broken, and he's been paraplegic ever since that time. 3 seconds. So I pray to God that doesn't happen to anybody, but it could. And so in many, many lesser degrees, people have issues. The economy could be layoffs. I've talked to people in this room. You didn't see it coming. You did not see it coming. And then there was a layoff, and that changed the equation. The other thing, not only were people caught flat-footed by things they didn't expect, but the other thing that is going on in real time in America is if inflation has had an impact far greater than people thought. And so, you know what, politicians are come and go, but Bidenomics, we've had, anyone notice the price of milk, the price of eggs, the price of, you have a young family. It's a struggle when all of a sudden the prices are doubling or, even more. Medical expenses that you didn't expect, And so things pile up. Many studies have brought out that retirees have expressed various regrets about their retirement planning. A common regret included a lack of understanding about retirement savings, poor money management before retirement, and underestimating the amount needed for a comfortable retirement. Many retirees also wish they had been more aggressive with their investments earlier in life. As a result of these financial challenges, retirees have had to make significant adjustments in their lifestyle. So, let's get real. I've dealt with people, they didn't see it coming, so now they're in a situation, they don't have the same opportunities, whether it's because of age, because of the economy is in a funk, other things could say there, but now they can't, you know what, I can't afford the car payment, I can't afford, and so now instead of thinking about the golden years, we used to have this expression, you get to retirement, they give you a gold watch to represent the golden years, and the people's many and more and more and more, it's not the golden years, it's the nightmare years. And so then we're reduced to having to change, maybe have to go for some help or welfare and things that people don't really like to have to do just to survive. And so the truth is that, and I like to be hard-nosed. And listen, if you get mad at me, that's okay. If God speaks to you enough so that you adjust some things, I'll take it. I'm willing to take it. You know what? Nobody is going to prepare for your future. Nobody owes that to you to get your paycheck, always do your budget, always do your deductions, always do that stuff. And that was the whole teaching in Proverbs, go to the ant. Go to the ant. He doesn't have an overseer. He doesn't have a manager. He doesn't have a mentor. He doesn't have a teacher that takes him by the hand. But something in that little creature's instincts that was placed by God, he knows that he has to make hay while the sun shines. He knows he has to gather now if he's going to store it up and not suffer the consequences of starvation or lack. And so there's the wisdom, and God is telling us, go and consider that, and that's one of the truths. Not only do they store up, but the Bible says expressly, they don't have somebody punching their clock, watching every step they do. And that's one of the things is that if you don't have self-discipline in your own personal life, you don't have dominion spiritually. Satan measures your dominion by how much dominion you exercise self-dominion, self-control. So that's just a fact. And it's like then the 7 sons of Sceva tried to cast out demons out of this guy. And they said, we adjure you, or we command you by the name of Jesus, whom Paul preaches, come out. And the demons that are inside this guy began to just cackle. Chris Hart. What? Beware when Chris Hart starts laughing. Just get away from him. He'll break your ribs. And so Paul, I know. Jesus, we know. But who are you? You little... And they jump on these 7 of them. One demonized guy beats the dog out of the 7 guys. They go running Jay butt naked out and crying for their mama. And so Satan measures your dominion he says, don't just think it's abracadabra magic words. You have to experience, you have to be a doer of the word of God if you're going to have the results of dominion. So that just comes free with Sunday school, okay? And so let's get Matthew 16, 2 and 3. Please, quick. Let's get some verses quick. Matthew 16, 2 and 3. Who'd help me? Okay, Joey. Then I need... If everybody could turn to Matthew 25, 14, because we're gonna go through that together. Let's go there together. Matthew 16, 2 and 3. Go ahead, Joey, when you have that.
He answered and said to them, when it is evening, you say it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning it will be foul weather today, for the sky is red and threatening. Hypocrites, you know how to discern the face of the sky, but you cannot discern the signs of the times.
So, red sky red sky at night, sailors delight. Red sky in morning, sailors take warning. Red sky at night, sailors delight. Red sky in morning, sailors take warning. So Jesus is saying, you guys can figure out how to read the face of nature. You guys got that. And he said, but there's signs, prophetic signs that are going on, and you're blind to that. And he says, no, actually, you're willfully blind to it. That's why he called them hypocrites. He said, how come you can't discern the signs of the times? So that has a prophetic aspect, but that also has a practical aspect, is that you can figure out, situations of life, and you can look at your station in life, your place in life. And so that's important that you do that. So anyway, we're all at one time or another going to have some emergency times, unexpected times. And so my advice before this Sunday school is dismissed is start today. Some people say, I've just lived hand to mouth, and so I haven't thought about this. Some people have a wrong, erroneous idea about they don't want to save because they said, well, Jesus said, don't lay up treasures upon the earth. But they're not taking that in context. That's in the context of trusting. Jesus in the context, you're either going to trust God or you're going to trust Mammon, the God of riches. And so don't put like this bigger idol, this is what I'm trusting to save me. Well, okay, you know what? I trust God to save me. And in fact, the truth is that resources can help you from some practical things, but they will not save your soul. Let's get that very clear. First things first. Seek ye first the kingdom, and you have to get your heart right with God. But having said that, absolutely many other places in the Scripture, God, in fact, the whole parable of the talents that we're going to look at in a minute has to do with the proper use. And then some people might say, I don't have any savings, and then I'll say to you, start this week. Don't no sense crying over spilt milk. Say, okay, God, I'm going to start, and I'm going to start to do it this week. Some people say, yeah, but I can't squeeze out a nickel. I don't have any money, any surplus money to save. You're not telling the truth, actually. If we just, if we went around and just, I don't have any money. Starbucks, latte, extra shots, what is the grande or deluxe grande with, ginger and peppermints and put a lot of ice, put a lot of whipped cream too, and put it in one of those cups, one of those collector's cups, And if we trailed over to your house, and it's like amazing how much junk you have that you don't need. And so the point is just if you stop going to Starbucks, do like old Olson does. Go buy a sack at Costco, $14 on sale, and grind your own. And then you make I make a better cup of coffee than Starbucks does. And if you keep looking at me like that, I'll start selling you coffee here in the foyer. I can get my savings up. And so if I do that, someone knock me on the head, please. Okay, so Pastor Campbell and I were talking about this, and he gave me one of his ideas that I think is very, very legitimate. He said, I practice the 10-10-10. And 10 is you put God first. You always make sure your priorities are right. Put God first. And when I say 10 and God first, what is that? What am I talking about? 10 with God. What? The tithe. 10th. That's what tithe means. Not your bow tie. It means the 10th. First goes to God. Get that in place before anything else you think about. And then he said 10 is you give. Tithing's the debt I owe. Giving is the seed I sow. So giving might be world evangelism, might be church planting, might be a brother in need, a Pentecostal handshake. That means that you got maybe you got a Benny or a Frankie, whichever you call it, Benjamin or a Franklin, a Frankie. I think, Brendan, you helped me to learn that new one, a Frankie. One time he used that in a drama. I like that. So I like to meet Frankie in your hand too. And so that's like you shake somebody's hand and it's a Pentecostal handshake. Try that sometime. There's people in this church, you don't know who they are and won't identify them. They give, sometimes they put a lot of money in my hand to give and disperse at Christmas time because they want to practice this. So 10, 10, and 10, the last 10 is the savings. So he said 10% goes to God, 10% goes to giving, and 10% goes to savings. Another way of saying that is learn how to pay yourself. Why should you pay the government and everybody else in the world before you start to put some stuff for your own benefit? And so Edmund Burke, just in case there's an attitude, well, it's too late or this, that, or the other. This is what Edmund Burke, he was a statesman of England. He said this: nobody makes a greater mistake than he who does nothing because he could only do a little. What you're not factoring in is that if you just start, jumpstart it. If you have to get jump-started, get the start going. Just get it going. Because what happens is then you trigger something that God has wired into the spiritual realm in creation and in his relationship with man. It's called the law of attraction. The opposite of the law of attraction is the law of subtraction. And both of them, let's look at Matthew 25. A story of 3 servants. It goes like this. The kingdom of heaven, verse 14, the kingdom of heaven is like a man who was going to another place for a visit. Before he left, he called for his servants and he told them to take care of his things while he was gone. He gave one servant 5 bags of gold, another servant 2 bags of gold, and a third servant 1 bag of gold, to each one as much as he could handle. Then he left. The servant who got 5 bags went quickly to invest the money, and he earned 5 more bags. In the same way, the servant who had 2 bags invested them, and he earned 2 more. But the servant who got 1 bag went out and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master came home and asked the servants, what did they do with his money? Remember, it's the master's money. The master entrusted you, his servant, with his resource, but it's not yours, it's his. And so he's coming back for an audit. He's coming back for an accounting. And so the servant who was given 5 bags of gold brought 5 more bags to the master and said, Master, you trusted me to take to care for 5 bags of gold. So I used your 5 bags to earn 5 more. The master answered, you did well. You are a good and loyal servant. Because you were loyal with small things, I'll let you care for much greater things. Come and share my joy with me. Then the servant who had been given 2 bags of gold came to the master and said, Master, you gave me 2 bags of gold to care for, so I used your 2 bags to earn more. The master answered, You did well. You're a good and loyal servant. Because you were loyal with small things, I will let you care for much greater things. Come and share my joy with me. Stop the tape. Notice the persons that were faithful, the servants that were faithful, they had different amounts that they were put in charge of, but the principle of investing, the principle of proper use, gained the same reward. Because you were faithful with 5, gain 5 more, 2, gain 2 more. They both got the exact commendation. Because you proved yourself faithful in that, now I'm going to give you bigger responsibilities. Both of you are both going to get bigger responsibilities, and come in with me into the kingdom. You're going to share my joy. Now we see this sad guy, Sad Sack. We call him Sergeant Sad Sack. And then the servant who had been given 1 bag of gold came to the master and said, Master, I knew that you were a hard man. You harvest things you did not plant. You gather crops where you did not sow any seed. So I was afraid, and I went and I hid your money in the ground. Here's your bag of gold. The guy's like, you just judged yourself out of your own mouth. You just said you knew something about it. You said you knew something about your master, that he's expecting an increase. And you said, I don't want to do that. I don't want to help that cause. I don't want to work for him. All right. So then he says, here you have your gold. Here it's back. And so this is the verse 26. The master answered, You are a wicked and lazy servant. Sometimes people are saying, I was afraid, but it's not really that they're afraid. It's they're lazy. They're lazy and they're wicked. You know, you'd get mad if somebody said that about you, but God can say what he wants to say because he says the truth. I found that very exceedingly enlightening. You are somebody else, buddy. You're pretending that you're all, I didn't understand, and I was afraid. And God says, no, I'll rip the covers off and expose. Really, the issue was, by the way, wicked means warped. You have a twisted, perverted twist. And throw it in too, you're just lazy. That's interesting. So you say you knew that I harvest things I did not plant and that I gather crops where I did not sow any seed. So you should have put my gold in the bank. Then when I came back, I would have at least received my gold back with interest. So the master told his other servants, take the bag of gold from that servant and give it to the servant who has 10 bags of gold. Those who have much will get more, and they will have much more than they need. But those who do not have much will have everything taken away from them. So someone's going to cry, that doesn't sound right. That's not fair. That blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but remember, it's the master, and his interest is he is a good businessman. He is a good farmer. He's looking for fruitfulness. He's looking for multiplication. When God created man, he wired hard into our hard drive. Be fruitful and multiply. That is your most basic instinct from the mouth of God after he fresh created you with his hands. He's the potter, you're the clay. He brought us up out of the ground. He breathed his spirit in us, or made in his image, which is fruitful and to have dominion. And he gave the first command, be fruitful and multiply, and that's in us. So when we're not fruitful and we will not multiply, we're actually fighting instincts inside. We're overriding, and you can do it, and I can do it. You're overriding the basic primary instincts. So, but don't miss this. Sad for the guy. He lost by default. He had a space of time. We all have life and a space of time. And then we are going to be reviewed. You're going to have an audit from God. He's going to see what you did with the opportunities that God gave. So then he says, okay, anybody that tried, and even if the guy had just said, I don't know, I just feel like maybe I'm going to mess it up. I'm going to put it, at least I'm going to put it in the bank. God just is ticked off that you sat on it. You buried it. You wouldn't do nothing. And so he said, you should have. At least I could have got a little interest in the. And so now he said, take it from that guy and give it to the person that was fruitful, that did the master's will. And there's the law of attraction. That's the law of attraction. So the guy was faithful. He did what he could. And now this kicks in a spiritual law, spiritual help, a factor that you can't tangibly, working on a diagram. It is a spiritual thing that God does. It's the law of attraction. And I'm adamant about that because I discovered that. When I started to do certain things in a number of different areas of my life, all of a sudden I became mindful, wait a second, there's something else at work here. There's some other force. It's not something I can put my finger on exactly, other than I am aware God's helping me. Please, you don't have to take my word for it. You put it into practices for like 6 months and then tell me what you come up with. But there's also the law of subtraction. And so Luke 16:10, he who is faithful in what is least is faithful also in much. And he who is unjust in what is least is unjust also in much. Please know you are being tested with your stewardship. God is not only looking for people to take to heaven, but he's also looking for people that will develop a godly character about such things that he can entrust. Go ahead, Alec, quick.
Well, yeah, it's a beautiful story. The thing that people don't look at is just the basics of it. If I'm interviewing financial planners, do I want to give it to the 5-talent guy or the 1-talent guy? It's not about what's fair. It's not about fairness.
Yes.
It's about who's doing something with their life. And so it just seems so obvious. Well, it's not fair. Well, it has nothing to do with fair.
Yes, but
Who would you choose? If you were the master, who would you choose?
Yes.
The guy that's good at it.
That's so profound. It's so simple. It's profound, and it's true. But I just want to correct something. I feel a little correction. Yeah, it is fair. I have this idea that you go to hell. If you go to hell, that's, how could a loving God? I make the case, I've come to a revelation, that is a loving God's response, is that you chose. Hell is that you hate go to God and the kingdom and the principle of love. Your principle is I, me, and my. Your principle is self and self-love, self-gratification, self-interest. And so God says, I'll put you in a place where that will you can fulfill that right there in hell. You'll constantly be, in hell, you are going to be so mindful of yourself. That's what's freaky. That's why we all should run to the altar. You really want to be locked up with yourself? Egads, that's the most frightening thing I can think of. I need diversion. I need an outward look. I can't. He that's all wrapped up in himself makes a very small package. All right, I have one more. Did somebody like that saying? I saw people smile. You've never heard that one? You haven't come to church very long. Okay, Joey's going to weigh in the last word. Go ahead.
I think it's also interesting in the parable of the talents, a master who has the ability to give out 8 talents, he's got dozens and dozens of servants, and he chooses these 3 to give the talents to when he leaves. Even if you're getting 1 talent, that's still more than any of the other servants have. In the United States, we live in the most prosperous nation that has probably ever existed. If you make minimum wage here, you're already wealthier than 95% of the world. And so there's no excuse at that point. We have the ability, because God has given us that ability, to invest, to give. And I think America is blessed in a large part because historically we have given to the poor, we have given to missions, we have blessed the world the way that Israel blesses the world. And so, it's very sad to see so many people that look at it and say, well, I don't have as much as whoever else. Yeah, but how much more do you have than so many other people that you can take that little bit and bring it forward?
Who are your parents and where were you raised in church? That's good doctrine. And when I went to the Philippines and I visited some people and they have a dirt They have a dirt floor. They have no refrigerator. They have no phone, certainly have no car. They have to go to the market every day to get their food. Some of them every day have to chase the water truck to get water. And I said to myself, when I looked myself in the mirror the next time, I said, don't you ever complain again. Don't you ever. Don't you ever. You have so much. And, it's just relative. In other words, America, you can have everything. And do you think, okay, Bezos, I think, has 240 billion. There's another guy that his company is the Louis Vuitton and the highfalutin stuff in Paris. And his family has, I think, about 200 or I don't know but anyway, he's number 2. And then number 3, I think, is Bezos. And so do you think those guys check each other's stuff? Do you think those guys, because they're always trying to, they're always recalculating, and so they have one day this guy's up and the next day. I want to tell you something. Those guys are very aware who's number 1. In other words, it does. So you have $240 billion. You have more money than it's obscene what you have. Okay, but the deal of it is if Mr. So-and-so gets ahead of him, now all of a sudden all that money doesn't make any bit of a difference. I got to topple that guy. It's like the human spirit, you're never satisfied. The eye is never satisfied except it surrenders to God. And godliness with contentment is a great blessing. The love of money, not money, the love of money, which is covetousness, is the